As I get older, one habit that came to me on its own is reading. In the recent time, I wanted to know more about my subject, and I found out I was reading more books, more podcasts, more YouTube content, basically consuming more knowledge than I used to. There was really no goal on how many books I was going to read last year. Even though towards the end of the year, I wanted to, but I decided not to. Let me just do it this year. So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about all the new lessons I've learned last year from each book. So in case you've not watched any of them, you might want to go after this video. Don't go now. After this video, then you can go and watch all of them. Because basically all of them are, I've made video of all of them. Yes, I think so. Purpose Driven Life and 5 seconds through. I think those are the ones I've not posted. Yeah, but I've read them. The lessons I've learned from this video, they're not necessarily new lessons, but they're like reinforcements. You know how you hear something that is not new, but this time it hits differently. Yes. So let's go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go.
Skill faculty. We are on the side of skill.
The first book I read last year was The Emerging Leader by Chukwemeka Okolie. Okay, it is a personal leadership development book. This is one of the books you will read without dictionary. It's straightforward. My biggest takeaway from this book, there are many, okay, but my biggest take from this book should be on focus. He said, whatever you focus more on grows and becomes your reality. Just get the book. The Amazon link for the book will be on the description box. Then the second book I read last year, Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. Here, productivity hits me differently. I learned to be more productive. You have to do your biggest tasks first. This book is very small in terms of volume. Not very small, but small in terms of volume. But in terms of lesson, I got a lot from this book. My productivity level skyrocketed. I started doing the hardest stuff early in the morning. Those things that will have great impact on me. If you're having trouble with being productive, you need to get this book. I'm telling you. I'll recommend this book to anybody anytime. It's not a recent book. Most of them are not recent books. They are, but you see this particular one. Anyway, I made a full video on my likes and lessons from the book. I even gave the book another African related title, so I'll drop the link on the description box video so you go and watch. The next book I read is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. My biggest takeaway from this book is the fact that most of your habits are on autopilot. I became more conscious. If I see myself repeating a behavior, I ask myself, do I want this behavior to stick or not? And what is cueing me into it? Power of Habits and Atomic Habits are two books that helped me replace a bad habit I had. That's eating uzu. Actually, uzu. I don't know if any of you know what uzu is. Uzu is an edible clay that Africans, I don't want to say much about other countries, but I know Africans, Nigerians here, we eat it like sand, like it has no medicinal value. That's what I heard. You might want to know how I was able to replace that habit. I'll drop the link to on the description box below, so you watch that video. It's an old video, but you need to watch it and learn something there. If you have a habit that you want to replace, you know, most times you don't stop habit entirely. You replace it with something else. So let's get to the fourth book. Talking about Atomic Habit, that's our next book that I learned something from. Atomic Habit by James Clear. There's a great leverage in little steps. Getting 1% better at your craft compounds. And one of the things that affects our progress and encourages procrastination is setting goals instead of system. Goal is good for setting the direction, while a system is good for making progress. I learned all that from the book. That's one of the things I like. That keeps coming to my head. Whatever I want to do, I make sure that I narrow it down so I will not be overwhelmed. I made a video on habit that I will be building this year, so you might want to watch the video too. I'll drop the link as usual on the description box. The next book I read last year, 2022, is Subtle Art of Not Giving In. by Mark Maxon. One lesson that hit differently is to stop feeling as though life is meant to be comfortable at all times. It's okay for things to suck sometimes. The subtle art of not giving in is essentially learning how to focus and prioritize your thoughts effectively. Basically, it's a book about value. This book is one book that the hype is real. Forget about the F in the title. Just read it and thank me later. That's if you haven't. I'm yet to see the movie. I really want to watch Mark in action. The trailer was intriguing. The 6th book I read last year, the best books I read last year, is Better Than Good by Zig Ziglar. I learned that life is a series of adjustments, always keeping the goal in view. There's always room for improvement. Never stay stagnant. You are good, but you can be better than good. Never settle for average. The next book, this tiny book, is Secret of the Millionaire's Mind. This was the smallest book I read in 2022. I mean, in terms of volume. I said in the video that I made, don't judge a book by its size. I still mean it. I underrated this book. I learned more lessons than I thought from this book. The most important lesson I learned from this book, The Secret of the Millionaire's Mind by T. Harvey Eke, is that every rich action is preceded by a rich way of thinking. Then money motivation matters. The reason or motivation you want to make money matters. If it comes from a place of fear, anger, and the need to prove yourself, is a bad reason, and it will not bring happiness at the end of the day. That's why you see some people, they have everything but they're not happy. It's the reason behind it. The reason should be right motivations like purpose, contribution, and joy. The 8th book I read last year, Good to Great by Jim Collins. This book is the leadership book on how to lead your company to greatness. Not just your company, but at least learn to do better rather than being stagnant. My biggest takeaway from this book is sometimes you don't have to primarily focus on what to do to be great. Rather, focus on what not to do. That is what to stop doing. In other words, your stop to do list is quite more important than your to-do list. Another lesson I learned from this book by Jim Collins is getting the right people is far more important than almost everything. In other words, people are not your most valuable asset. It's the right people that are your most valuable asset. The who and for what. Just get the book. Then the next book I read last year is Attitude is Everything by Kate Herring. Even though the author is late, his works still lives on. This book will help you develop positivity in life. Your attitude determines the overall quality of your life. So in all, choose positivity. It also reminds me that it's better to respond than it is to react to a situation. What do I mean? Instead of saying, now I've lost my job, I'm going to be broke for a long time, you rather say, this is time for me to start something new. Maybe get a new skill, apply to another organization. Basically, rather than complaining, get a positive attitude and swing into action. There's always a positive side to everything. The 10th book I read last year, 2022, is 5 Seconds Rule by Mel Robbins. It's so refreshing to learn again that courage is not reserved for a particular group of people, and that things get easier the moment you understand your own ability to push yourself to action. If you're having trouble getting yourself to take action, get this book and thank me later. The 11th one is The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. I think I read this book last year, this year. Whichever one, yes. It's last year, but I posted it this year. So, this is one faith-based book I decided to share here because a lot of young people have identity crisis. If you don't know who you are most likely going to do little. Let me say it again. If you don't know who you are, you're most likely going to do little in life. I learned to let go. He said, those who hurt you have hurt you in the past and cannot continue to hurt you now unless you hold on to the pain through resentment. Then the last book I read last year, the 12th one, these are just the best ones. I read more books, but these ones are just the best. It's Contagious by Jonah Berger. This book is marketing made easy. It covers 6 principles of consciousness. It has social currency, trigger emotion, public observance, practical values, and stories. My biggest takeaway from this book is that virality isn't born, it's made. The point here is to learn how to bring out the variety in every product or service. These are the best books I read in 2022. The first one is Imagine Leader by Chukwemeka Okoli T. The second one is Eat That Frog by Brian Casey. The third one is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. The fourth one is Atomic Habits by James Clear. The fifth one is The Subtle Art of Not Giving A by Mark Manson. The sixth book, Better Than Good by Zig Ziglar. The seventh one is The Secret of the Millionaire's Mind. The eighth one is Good to Great by Jim Collins. The ninth one is Attitude is Everything by Kate Herring. The 10th one is The 5 Seconds Rule by Mel Robbins. The 11th one is The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. The last but not the least is Contagious by Jonah Bedger. I'm also going to use this channel to keep me accountable for my next year's goal. I found that sharing here creates an archive and I'm loving it. So my next video will be on the books I'm going to read this year, 2023. I hope my best will be good enough to motivate you to keep reading, to keep growing to the person you want to be. Until then, have yourself a very good year ahead. And remember to subscribe and share this video to someone close to you who wants to grow. Bye!